Thieves can't, or rather, Thieves couldn't, but now Thieves can. We'll talk about that later though. The 2024 Rogues have seen a number of great changes that I'm really excited about. One of the things that's kind of all the buzz is, of course, the new weapon mastery rules. There's a number of different changes coming for the 2024 Rogue, and a lot of them are actually pretty exciting for how they're going to change gameplay. The weapon mastery system is obviously being touted as one of the big changes that's coming in the 2024 books, and I love the fact that they're allowing rogues to get in on this and, of course, to be able to change their options depending on the weapons that they want to choose so that you can customize your rogue not only when you create it, but over time you can adjust according to the loot that drops your way. The Nick and Vex properties that are highlighted in all of the different conversations about rogue are pretty sensibly the kind that are going to make the big changes for rogues, because they're the kind of thing that's going to free up the rogue's cunning action, either by giving them advantage so that they don't need to contrive it with their steady aim, or giving them a secondary attack without it costing their bonus action using the Nick property. The change to Thieves Cant now giving rogues an additional language proficiency is really just a quality of life improvement, but it definitely leans into the fantasy pretty nicely. We'll come back to the subclasses a little bit later, but steady aim being imported directly into the base class is pretty much a must-have. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything's inclusion of this ability to take a bonus action to contrive advantage as long as you don't move for your entire turn is a great option that has definitely been used in my games extensively since Tasha's came out, and has pretty much resulted in the rogue being able to answer for themselves the question of, do I have advantage? Cunning Strike is the big game changer that's coming in 2024 for the rogue, giving them a lot of versatile options for how they participate in combat. Rogues are still going to be able to deliver the big whammy sneak attack in order to deal a nice big strike of damage, but they're going to have access to a number of different features that they can apply, for either to trip their opponents, to poison them to give disadvantage on their attacks as a kind of mini tanking game, or to withdraw, getting even more movement without costing their bonus action so that they can move, dash, and move half their movement speed again without provoking opportunity attacks in order to be able to blaze across the battlefield and put themselves into the best circumstances possible and stay out of reach of their enemies. This means on their turn, the average 5th level rogue is going to be able to pop out at least 75 feet of movement, and many of them are going to be able to increase that number quite a bit, putting them not quite on par with the monk for speed, but definitely pushing close. The withdraw ability is actually the one that I've seen most during my playtest of the rogue, as tripping somebody when you're already have advantage and you're looking to deliver a big sneak attack blow is just not quite as sexy, and poisoning an opponent in order to lessen their offensive output is less traditionally the rogue's go-to choice. That doesn't mean that there won't be some rogues that lean hard into these directions, but I suspect that withdraw is the ability we will see most at play. Reliable talent moving from 11 to 7 is actually one of the things that I dislike most about the changes that we've got coming up, simply because I think that auto rolls of 10 delete a lot of tension from our games and can be a negative thing. However, having it at level 7 is actually better than just having it at level 11, because having it at level 7 means having it when you have a lower proficiency bonus, meaning that you're less likely to auto succeed until your proficiency bonus and your attributes scale up a little bit more. Improved Cunning Strike allows you to sacrifice multiple of your sneak attack dice in order to get multiple effects, but I haven't actually seen it come into play a tremendous bunch, though it was tested a few times, but most of the time sacrificing all that damage just doesn't feel worth it unless the effects that you're getting are really potent, like the higher level ones that you get at level 14. The 14th level abilities, on the other hand, are pretty potent, but kind of expensive. Being able to knock people unconscious is devastating because it sets people up for automatic crits. Hello, Paladin. Blinding them does cause a significant disadvantage, but again, it leans into that control rogue that is a little more rare, and limiting the action economy remains to be seen exactly how that one's going to play out. I'm assuming that they're using their days rules from the UA. Slippery Mind rounding out the defenses of the rogue in terms of their saving throws is definitely not going to go astray, and Stroke of Luck turning a miss into an automatic critical hit is going to be devastating at exactly the right times. All these changes are pretty much what we expected from the Unearthed Arcana. There wasn't any tremendously large surprises there. Where I feel like we had a handful of surprises was actually back at level 3 in the subclasses. We don't have all the details on these, but the little teasers that we have received definitely tell an interesting tale. For Arcane Trickster, the option to change cantrips is just a nice quality of life improvement, and every time you level up, you'll be able to do that. The only other change mentioned so far is that the Versatile Trickster ability is now going to be able to trip an opponent instead. The way it was described means that if you use the trip feature on your Cunning strike, then you can have anybody who is adjacent to your Versatile Trickster's mage hand suffer the same effect, the same saving throw or fall prone situation. The problems that I see with this, of course, are that the trip action is one of the lesser used Cunning strike options, though perhaps for the Versatile Trickster, because you're getting 2 people potentially put into this situation, you'll be more likely to do so. And it doesn't answer the question of whether the biggest fault in the Arcane Trickster has been fixed, and that biggest fault is that Mage Hand takes an action to cast. Because it takes an action to cast, it means giving up your first round of combat, or pulling some kind of shenanigans where you're constantly casting it every minute and directing it to move along with you, even though you can dash at twice or more of the speed than it can move in a single round. I personally am really hoping that Mage Hand has been made a bonus action so that it can be used during combat in any situation, and especially by the Versatile Trickster. The Assassin has had it more easy to trigger the Assassinate and Death Strike features, and had the damage reduced, but doesn't mention how either of those things have been accomplished. Do Assassins no longer crit on people who've been surprised? And if it's more easy to trigger, does that mean that the Assassinate feature's ability to gain advantage functions against anybody who you beat in initiative, even if it isn't a surprise round? Without further answers to those questions, we're really left up in the air wondering. We're told that you're more adept at poisoning and impersonating people, but not really given any details on how that plays out, so we're left to wonder for a little while on that. But they also revealed that the steady aim ability from Tasha's Cauldron of Anything will still allow the Assassin to move, meaning that they can bonus action contrive advantage at any time and still be a mobile force on the battlefield. There are a lot of other ways to contrive advantage, so you might not necessarily have needed this for your skirmisher hit-and-run build, but it's a pretty nice option. The Soulknife is actually one of my favorite subclasses for the rogue, and so hearing that it hasn't been largely messed with in its inclusion into the player's handbook is actually a relief. I love the fact that they're making the Soulknife now have a 60-120 range, so that there is a long-ranged option for the rogue that doesn't want to carry any weapons, and adding the Vex Mastery property to Soul Knives means that they're going to be able to continue to have advantage round after round every time that they manage to score a hit. Both of these changes are just a nice little touch to add to an awesome subclass. And finally, of course, the Thief, and the ability for the Thief to now can instead of can't when it comes to using magic items as a bonus action. I've actually been playtesting this in one of my high-level campaigns, and frankly, it's a little bit on the overpowered side, depending upon the magic items that your group has managed to gather up, but it's also a crap ton of fun for the players and for any DM who's a fan of their players. In my case, it just highlights just how powerful the legendary staves really can be when put to use on a regular basis. Keep in mind that magic items being able to be triggered as a bonus action means that wands and staves are going to be able to deliver spells that are typically an action to cast as a bonus action, in addition to the rogue's already quite meaty direct damage. Fireballing a room, running in and stabbing the guy who failed his saving throw so that he dies in the first round of combat is pretty much going to happen if you have a Thief Rogue at your table. Add into this the new Cunning Strike option for sneak attack that allows you to both make your sneak attack from a hiding place and then remain hidden during it, and the Thief Rogue might just now become, instead of the least used Player's Handbook subclass, becoming the most used Player's Handbook subclass. Add in Use Magic Device, giving you an additional attunement slot so that you can fit that magical wand of fireballs on your belt while still kitting yourself out for everything else you need to do. A chance to fire that fireball without expending its charges, and the ability to use any spell scroll that your group comes across, and the Thief Rogue might not only become the most played subclass, but it's also going to potentially outshine the Arcane Trickster in the I'm a Wizard and Rogue category. Either way, rogues are shaping up to have more options than ever before, more versatility than ever before, and still able to shank a guy. What other changes might have slipped in there? Who knows? Regardless, thanks for watching, and happy adventuring.